At dawn's first light, Harlow Sterling and Caspian Rhodes stand before a mysterious diamond ring that radiates 1,000 beams as if it holds both past and future. Who is the unseen benefactor? What secret will be revealed? Harlow Sterling sat by the window of the small cafe, watching the bustling crowd weave through the glass like colorful threads of life. The warm golden light from the ceiling lamp enveloped her like a gentle embrace, but her heart remained heavy, pressed down like a tightly compacted stone. At 27, one of the city's most talented architects, she had transformed countless skyscrapers into works of art. Yet in matters of love, she was like an unfinished project, perpetually built up only to collapse. Her mother, Lilac Davenport, was an invisible rope tightening from afar, always reminding her of failed matchmaking attempts. "This is your 98th date. Don't embarrass me," her mother's voice echoed through the phone, lingering like a long slope leading Harlow into a chasm of pressure. She sighed softly, sneaking a glance at her watch. More than 3 minutes had passed, and her date still hadn't arrived. Normally, with her ironclad discipline, Harlow would have left the cafe by now, but her mother's promise that, "He's special, don't miss this one," made her stay patient. She slowly stirred sugar into her steaming latte, the wisps of white vapor like fleeting sighs in the warm air. Each drop of coffee tasted like the bitterness of time, imprinting a question on her lips. Will anyone ever be patient enough to wait for me as I wait for happiness? The sound of Thorn Marlowe's footsteps echoed from behind the wooden door, his smile not yet bright enough to light up the world around him. A simple dress shirt, neatly pressed trousers, no hint of extravagance, but his eyes carried a quiet sincerity. "You're Harlow Sterling, right?" His voice was low, slightly weary from traffic. She nodded, forcing a smile, though a flicker of doubt stirred within. Was traffic just a convenient excuse for someone who didn't want to show up? They sat down, ordering more drinks and pastries. At first, his questions about her work and hobbies were light, like an autumn breeze rustling through leaves. Harlow shared stories of her blueprints and the buildings she'd designed. He listened intently, rarely trying to impress, simply exuding a comfortable presence. But then she sensed disconnect. Though he claimed not to be an architect, his knowledge of design occasionally flowed like a spring. His answers carried an invisible thread, prompting her to wonder, is he hiding behind a humble facade? When his phone lit up, a pang of unease hit her. "Aren't you going to answer that?" she asked, mildly surprised as he glanced at the screen and flipped the phone face down on the table. Harlow's gaze sharpened, her curiosity now that of a detective eager to unravel secrets hidden in every word. Eventually, he reluctantly stepped outside, leaving her alone amid the soft music and the warmth of her coffee. On impulse, she stood and quietly slipped behind the glass window. "Who are you, and why are you dodging calls?" a woman's voice rang out, cold as a northern gust. Thorn responded, his tone heavy with duty. "I'm sorry, love. The house payments, the kids' milk." The word kids struck Harlow's chest like a death knell. And wife, not the decent bachelor he'd claimed to be. Harlow froze, her heart shattering into 1,000 pieces. She stepped forward, her eyes cutting through the darkness like a blade. "Thorn, or should I call you something else?" Her voice was steely, each syllable a bullet. He stammered, mumbling, "It's not what you think, we're just—" But she cut him off. "You lied to me. I don't have time for liars." With each word she felt lighter, as if shedding a long-carried burden. Turning away, Harlow Sterling returned to the empty table, grabbed her purse, and left the cafe. Outside, the traffic still roared, but she walked with newfound confidence. Her shoulders no longer slumped under the weight of comparisons or trembled at false promises. She had reclaimed a piece of herself, the passionate architect who never bowed to prejudice or deceit. Harlow Sterling drove in a daze after her encounter with Thorn Marlowe, her heart caught in a relentless drizzle. Hungry and exhausted, she veered onto a quiet road on the city's outskirts, where her car came to a stop beside Juniper Crane's fruit stall. A solitary beacon in the night, Baskets of plump, fresh fruit were stacked like jewels on a rustic brown cloth, exuding a faint, sweet aroma. The air was still, broken only by the rustle of leaves and the rhythm of her halting breaths. Harlow stepped out of the car, her feet crunching on the gravel like the notes of a midnight love song. She took a deep breath, her senses filled with the scent of ripe bananas, golden oranges, and the tangy zest of tangerines. Juniper Crane smiled, her kind eyes like rays of dawn breaking through foliage, and called out, "What would you like, dear?" Her voice, hoarse like wind whispering through reeds, was strangely warm. In that moment, Harlow was no longer the celebrated architect or the ice queen her mother labeled her. She was just a weary traveler, lost in the vastness of life. As she reached for a few bananas to place in her bag, a gentle touch brushed her shoulder. Light as a spring, he breathed. Caspian Rhodes stood there, his clothes tattered like autumn's last leaves, but his eyes sparkled like morning dew. His face was rugged like the bark of an ancient tree, yet his gaze held a quiet sorrow that made her heart pause. He bowed his head, his voice low and warm like a cello's hum. "Excuse me, miss, could you spare some change for food? I haven't eaten in 2 days." His plea pierced her like a droplet shattering a seemingly unbreakable wall of ice. She paused, studying him through the hazy night. His frame was frail, yet unbowed by the weight of hardship. His eyes, like a crescent moon veiled by clouds, radiated unspoken resilience. In that fleeting moment, she glimpsed dignity in humility, a wildflower in a barren desert, still reaching for the light. Without hesitation, Harlow opened her wallet and handed him a few bills. To her, it was a small sum compared to her designer handbag, but to Caspian, it was a world. His eyes shimmered like dewdrops breaking in the morning sun as he took the money. "Thank you," he said, his voice choking like the final note of a somber melody. "You don't know what this means to me." She smiled, her heart warming as if a tiny flame had flickered to life in the depths of winter. Back in her car, Harlow couldn't shake the image of his retreating figure, clutching the money as if holding on to hope itself. Her mind hummed with the strains of a new love song. That night, his silhouette haunted her dreams. The next morning she woke before dawn, resolved to return to the stall. Her heart thrummed with anticipation, as if she were about to turn the page of an unwritten story, eager to inscribe the next lines of this strange tale. At the stall, Juniper Crane greeted her with the same radiant smile, her silver hair gleaming like a sea of stars. Harlow's eyes scanned the scene and found Caspian Rhodes sitting beneath a banyan tree, his lean frame quiet but his head held high, a silent statue amidst the city's clamor. Threads of morning sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting a poetic halo over his shoulders. She approached, a strange sense of peace washing over her, as if she'd found a missing piece of her life's canvas. "Good morning," she said, her voice soft as silk draped over a shoulder. He looked up, his eyes first startled, then warm like the sunrise after a storm. "I'm Harlow Sterling, the one who helped you yesterday." She asked his name, and thus began the story of Caspian Rhodes, an orphan boy raised in hardship who honed his eloquence by listening to the tales that drifted past. Between two souls from seemingly different worlds, a gentle bond began to bloom, like the faint scent of early spring quietly stirring, awakening hearts long forgotten by dreams. Harlow Sterling awoke to the gentle chime of her alarm, the dawn unfurling like a golden silk ribbon through the window, infusing her soul with a fresh wave of hope. Her heart still echoed with the image of Caspian Rhodes, beneath the roadside tree, his lean, resilient frame and eyes deep as a well holding an entire sky of memories. Forgetting the clamor of the city, she carried a flutter of anticipation, like an artist about to unveil a canvas with paint yet to dry. Before leaving her apartment, she glanced at the city map pinned to the wall, where a red dot marked Juniper Crane's fruit stall. A budding desire to know more about him bloomed like a shy rose, urging her to return. In the car, she adjusted the rearview mirror, her determined face framed by the fleeting shadows of trees outside. Each turn of the steering wheel was a note in a melody, guiding her back to the place of unfinished stories. Stepping slowly onto the gravel path, she felt the cool touch of morning dew on the leaves, her footsteps sounding like the prelude to a symphony of life. Juniper Crane stood there, her silver hair like early snow, her hands deftly arranging fruit, her eyes kind as a gentle moon. But it was the slender figure of Caspian Rhodes under the tree's canopy that truly caught her attention. He sat there, his tattered clothes bearing the marks of unyielding resolve etched into the worn fabric. "Good morning, Miss Harlow," he said, his voice warm and low, like a violin resonating through a vast forest. His eyes sparkled with surprise and joy, stirring, really set her heart racing as if butterflies were dancing in her chest. "Good morning, Caspian," she replied, her voice soft as silk draped over a loom, her smile like sunlight breaking through clouds, dispelling the lingering dew on the branches. They sat on a moss-covered stone bench where gravel held the imprints of passers-by, as if marking the starting point of a new bond. Caspian spoke of his childhood when his parents left his life one by one, like leaves falling in the wind, leaving him adrift in a sea of memories. He learned to listen to every street conversation, each sound becoming a silent brick in the foundation of his rich vocabulary, enabling him not just to survive but to rise, like a wild plant sprouting through a crack in stone, reaching for sunlight. His voice trembled as he spoke of a distant village, where memories and loneliness wove together like golden threads on faded fabric. Harlow listened intently, her eyes glistening with dewdrop tears, her heart swelling with empathy and admiration. She began to share about her recent architectural project, but soon fell silent, yielding space for his story to unfold. A lone bird's song from a high branch seemed to underscore the arduous journey Caspian had endured. In a moment of stillness, Harlow realized that some connections, though not bound by blood, were deeper than any vow. She touched his hand, warm like a candle flickering in the breeze, and whispered, "Caspian, would you like to be friends? Friends who don't care about wealth or roots, only a true heart." He looked up, his eyes wide like a child seeing a rainbow after a storm, a tear of joy glinting at the corner of his eye. "Friends," he repeated, his voice breaking with emotion. I'd be honored. I never thought I'd be worthy of a friend." Harlow smiled, her expression a melody of renewal in his heart, and squeezed his hand. "We'll share joys and sorrows, like two stars traveling together across the vast night sky." A gentle morning breeze carried their promise of friendship into the air, planting the seed for a bright new chapter. Amid the green of tender leaves in a pristine morning sky, Harlow Sterling and Caspian Rhodes sealed the morning with a bond of sincerity, opening the first page of a friendship woven with trust and boundless hope. Harlow Sterling felt the weight of family expectations crashing like relentless waves against a rocky shore, as Lilac Davenport's calls came hourly. "The family reunion is coming up, don't let me down," her mother's words echoed like an alarm drum, quickening her heartbeat beyond the rhythm of tires rolling on the quiet road. The pressure stemmed not only from whispers about her unmarried status, but also from the dread of becoming a laughingstock among unfamiliar family faces. Her mind spun, each thought of attending the reunion alone igniting a fire that burned away any hope of peace. In the dead of night, Harlow stared at the antique clock on her living room wall, its hands like a fragile boat adrift on an ocean of time, waiting for no one. She wondered, how can I fend off those prying eyes? The answer flashed like lightning. A fake fiancé would paint the perfect picture to conceal her loneliness. The idea sparked a thrill in her heart like a lone bird finding its perch at last. She picked up the phone and called Caspian Rhodes, the new friend with whom she'd forged a fragile bond, and blurted out her bold proposal. "Would you pretend to be my fiancé?" His voice wavered with a soft sigh, like a guitar's echo through an ancient forest. I'm not sure I'm the right fit." But in his eyes, weathered by a life of hardship, Caspian saw her resolve and a lighthouse guiding a ship through a fog-laden sea. "I trust you," she said, her voice gentle yet firm. "Just stay by my side, and I'll guide you through everything." His agreement came hesitantly but resolutely, like a lone flower at season's end still reaching for the light. The next morning, Harlow took Caspian to a salon where his disheveled hair was tamed under the skilled hands of a stylist. The snip of scissors rang like a tango's opening notes, each falling lock a farewell to his impoverished past. When he looked up at the mirror, the reflection was that of a prince awakening amidst life's dark tides, prompting a smile from Harlow. His appearance was beginning to suit the role of her perfect fake groom. But she didn't stop there. She led him to shop for clothes. Sharp suits like steadfast rocks in a rushing stream. Crisp white shirts like blank pages awaiting a story. Harlow meticulously chose ties and polished shoes, teaching him how to fold cuffs and adjust collars, her voice encouraging. "Believe in yourself. Every detail builds greater confidence." Watching Caspian transform step by step, like a withered butterfly finally soaring from its cocoon, filled her with quiet joy. Back at her apartment, she set up a small strategy room, the table adorned with 2 steaming cups of tea and a few pastries, the atmosphere intimate, like a dance rehearsal before a grand ball. Harlow coached Caspian on greetings, listening skills, and how to answer questions like "What do you enjoy?" or "What are you proud of?" She taught him to maintain eye contact without faltering, demonstrating with real examples. Her voice was soft as silk, yet firm as a bridge builder, laying the foundation for a fake fiancé who had to feel real. By the end of the session, Caspian Rhodes stood in the center of the room, impeccably dressed, his eyes gleaming with a pride rivaling that of a king. Harlow gazed at him, her heart soaring like a crescendo, and whispered, "We're ready." The family pressure had morphed into motivation. The fake fiancé plan was no longer a mere ruse, but a testament to her daring spirit, a woman determined to seize every resource, even a simple friendship, to craft her own future. The phone rang just as Harlow Sterling was immersed in her blueprints, like a compass suddenly sounding an alarm, shattering the stillness of the room. The screen flashed Thorn Marlowe's name, the man who once wore a mask of false bachelorhood, and she answered with a face as cold as a blade. His voice crackled through the speaker, low and bitter like a knife grazing skin. "Oh, so you're parading around with a homeless man now? I saw you buying him clothes, calling each other sweet names like a married couple. What a waste of money." Each word from Thorn struck her like reckless raindrops smashing against glass, cracking her sense of pride. But Harlow didn't flinch. She took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of her resolve rise like dawn. "You're mistaken, Thorn," she replied, her voice steady as waves lapping the shore. "My money isn't wasted. But you're squandering your honor, playing a better actor than any playwright." Thorn's scoffing laugh erupted, icy and sharp. "Honor? What do you know about that?" He spoke with the confidence of someone perched on a pedestal, looking down. But in that moment, Harlow unleashed a volley of words, sharp as golden arrows. "Ever heard the saying, 'The bird that sings the loudest is often the one caged'? I'm afraid you're just another performer. Someone's forced to hide their past, yet proclaims themselves a hero." A sudden silence from the other end was like glass shattering on stone. Thorn didn't respond immediately, perhaps grappling with his own words. Harlow pressed on, her voice shifting from sweet to steel. "You pretended to be pure, only to be exposed like thin paper. If you want to prove your worth, start by living honestly." She hung up, the beep of the call's end ringing like a triumphant drum. With Thorn Marlowe's shadow gone from the screen, Harlow Sterling smiled faintly, her heart brimming with the sweet taste of freedom. The rage that once blazed had turned to ash, making way for radiant pride. She stepped to the window, catching the gentle afternoon breeze as if it soothed her heart's wounds. Her eyes followed falling leaves, knowing that even the fiercest storms were mere turning points, making the tree grow stronger. In the quiet, Harlow recalled the words of her best friend, Zephyr Vale. "Don't let petty people dim your light." She grabbed her phone and sent Zephyr a quick message. "Done. He's reached the limit of his lies." Those few words were enough to release her, like a broken mirror pieced back together by the gravity of truth. In the end, she told herself that every call from the past was just a faint echo, powerless to block the path to her future. Caspian Rhodes, her new companion, awaited at the road's end, where friendship was blossoming into kinship, and love was sprouting from seeds of sincerity. The vengeful phone call didn't break her. It became the prelude to a symphony of independence, with Harlow Sterling as the conductor and life itself as the audience, savoring every rise and fall of the melody. Harlow Sterling no longer felt the invisible wall separating her heart from new stirrings ever since she and Caspian Rhodes began their first fiancé role-play rehearsals. Each afternoon, as the sunset cast a soft golden glow through the curtains like delicate silk tinged with the hue of waves, they paused their work and sat together on the plush armchair in the living room. What was once a stage for rehearsed hollow lines had transformed into a warm setting for genuine exchanges. His words, once simple as pebbles rolling in a stream, now sparkled like 1,000 crystal grains echoing in her heart. Gradually, Harlow realized his smile was not mere acting, but a ray of morning sunlight piercing her soul, dispelling lingering doubts. When she pointed to a new blueprint, her eyes aglow, he no longer stumbled through rehearsed platitudes, but offered sincere opinions, polished like an artist, adding the final stroke to a landscape painting, drawing her into his worldview. In his eyes, she saw admiration, not for her career's glamour, but for her true self, strong, emotional, and unafraid to live authentically. One late evening, as the city's streetlights dimmed, Zephyr Vale, her closest friend, visited, her eyes twinkling with curiosity like a shooting star streaking across the night. "I don't understand why you trust him so much," Zephyr sighed, her voice tinged with worry like a sudden downpour on a blooming rose garden. But Harlow only smiled, deftly easing her friend's concerns. "Caspian Rhodes isn't a blank page for me to scribble on. He's a work of art that takes time to uncover. I see in him a part of myself, someone who's stumbled and found faith again." Day by day, their bond grew like a mountain stream, starting as a trickle, gathering strength and rushing powerfully through rocky crevices. Harlow was surprised when Caspian remembered her name without formal introductions, and didn't shy away from sharing the quiet loneliness of his nights, making her feel the power of connection. When two souls resonate, physical distance becomes mere decoration. One Saturday afternoon, under a gray sky like an unpressed canvas, they strolled through the park. Fallen leaves blanketed the path, forming a smooth golden carpet, each step releasing a soft rustle. Harlow pulled her phone from her coat pocket, typed, "Ice cream?" and looked up at him, her eyes shimmering with hope. He nodded, a smile blooming on his lips like a wildflower in late autumn, and followed her past a lake reflecting clouds and their laughter, blending into the crisp, sweet air. The ice cream melted in their cups as her heart warmed with each spoonful, while Caspian slowly shared his dream of becoming a writer, a dream once hidden beneath his patched clothes. His words drifted like cigarette smoke in an empty bar, vivid and explosive, igniting unwritten pages in her mind. She realized she didn't just admire his character. She was captivated by the rich inner world he nurtured. Back at the apartment, night had fallen, but the space glowed with the soft light of a reading lamp. Harlow rested her hand on the table, brushing past her blueprints to where he sat. "Can you help me add a line here?" she asked, her voice warm as a lullaby. Caspian paused his typing, leaned closer, and gave her a tender, wistful look. Gently, he pulled her to sit beside him, his hand grazing her fingers like the opening note of a symphony. In that moment, their friendship began to blossom into something more, not a raging storm, but a flower quietly unfurling in the morning dew, gentle, proud, and full of mystery. Harlow Sterling smiled, her heart racing, no longer fearing the pressures around her. She knew she had Caspian Rhodes by her side, a source of warmth and inspiration, helping her write her own love story. Harlow Sterling stepped into Serafina Monroe's jewelry store like an artist wandering into a museum of gems, each footstep echoing the triumphant rhythm of hope. The soft chime of the bell pulled her back to reality, where diamond rings sparkled under the lights like thousands of stars gathered in a tranquil ocean. Each glass display case shimmered with flickering light, transforming the space into a modern fairy tale. Serafina Monroe greeted her with a smile, her voice as gentle as a spring breeze singing through willow branches. Among countless choices, Harlow and Caspian Rhodes paused before a diamond ring set apart on a black velvet pedestal. The stone glowed like a full moon reflected in a still lake at night, captivating Harlow as if she were gazing at a jewel of fate. She glanced at Serafina, and the jeweler's eyes sparkled with reverence and mystery. "This one already has an owner," she whispered, her voice like the low note that opens a symphony. "The owner wishes to gift it to both of you." Her words struck like thunder in a clear sky, making Harlow's heart race until she could barely breathe. She looked at Caspian, catching the surprise hidden deep in his eyes, like dew clinging to a plum blossom as winter thaws. "For free?" she asked, her voice faltering. In disbelief, Serafina Monroe nodded, her face radiant with a smile as warm as morning sunlight. "The anonymous benefactor has covered all costs, hoping you and he will accept this gift as an affirmation of your new journey." In that moment, time seemed to freeze. Every mirror, every gemstone appeared to hold its breath, awaiting a response. Caspian Rhodes bowed his head in gratitude, his voice deep and warm like a river flowing silently under a starry sky. His breath mingled with the melody of their quiet footsteps, as if each step etched an unspoken vow. Harlow Sterling opened the velvet box, her trembling hands touching the ring, feeling as though she were touching a treasure hidden in a castle of time. On the way home, the diamond ring rested carefully in its velvet box, like a crystal orb containing the universe, leaving Harlow to wonder about the mysterious benefactor who had followed her and Caspian Rhodes' unfinished story, who knew enough to give without needing recognition. Each stretch of road, the streetlights cast beams onto, the car's windows like scattered pearls, linking the past, present, and an unrevealed future. Back at the apartment, she placed the jewelry box on the table, the ceiling light casting rays onto the stone like a lighthouse guiding weary ships through a storm. Caspian Rhodes sat beside her, his eyes gleaming with admiration and astonishment, like a visitor from another planet stepping into a wondrous gallery. He gently opened the box, the diamond ring reflecting countless rays of light, weaving an untold story. In the quiet space, they gazed at the ring together, like lovers watching a new dawn, envisioning the future awaiting them. "Why would he give it to us?" Harlow whispered, her voice like an owl's soft call in an ancient forest. Caspian Rhodes didn't answer immediately, only smiled faintly, his eyes warm as the last rays of sunset. He slipped the ring onto her finger, as if entrusting her with faith and closing a chapter filled with doubts. That evening, they sat by the window, watching the city light up. The ring sparkled on Harlow Sterling's finger, like a star resting in the sky, reminding her that miracles come from hearts that wait and give without calculation. Under the flickering city lights, their silhouettes blended into a love song of fate, embracing the unexpected gift and opening their hearts to the chapters ahead, where the mystery of the ring awaited silent revelations. Harlow Sterling awoke as dawn began to bloom, when the first rays of light streamed through the window like delicate silk draping over calm ocean waves. She let go of the soft blanket, her eyes still hazy with the dreamlike glow of last night, when the unexpected diamond ring from Serafina Monroe had shimmered with 1,000 sparkling rays. Like a star fallen into the palm of her hand, her heart pounded, each beat like a resonant bell heralding the start of a new chapter. And this dawn was not just the beginning of a new day, but the starting point of a journey to uncover the mystery behind the anonymous gift. She sat up, her hand lightly brushing the ring on the dresser, the cold metal somehow warm with the breath of fate, reminding her that some things transcend reason, capable of igniting an entire paradise of hope. Last night's rain still lingered on the leaves outside the balcony, droplets glistening like the tears of the night, now sparkling on climbing rose branches. Harlow imagined each drop as a fragment of memory, waiting to be reclaimed. She sighed, breathing deeply, the scent of damp earth mingling with faint floral notes, making her feel as if the world's awakening breath surrounded her. Across the streetlights flickered like 1,000 eyes watching her every move, but Harlow Sterling no longer feared the gaze of others, for each step she took now carried the warmth of Caspian Rhodes, her steadfast friend and soulmate, who had held her hand through the storms. She picked up the phone to call Caspian Rhodes, her voice hesitant like a spring stream trickling over rocks. "This morning, I want to meet you at the cafe by the park." His warm reply came through. "Don't worry, I'll be there." Each word, each cadence in his voice was like a lingering melody, fueling her courage to face the unspoken, the questions rising from the depths of her heart. Who is the mysterious benefactor? Why give us such a lavish gift? On her way to the meeting point, Harlow Sterling passed the wooden fruit stand where she first met Juniper Crane, its vibrant colors still vivid like a folk painting. She wondered if the ring's giver had watched her journey from the early days when she hesitated to speak with Caspian, or if this was merely a miraculous coincidence of the universe. The city buzzed with life, yet her heart felt strangely still, like the moment between two breaths, where all worries dissolved, leaving only hope and curiosity. When Caspian Rhodes arrived, his eyes lit up with joy like a forest bird greeting a warm season. They sat down beside steaming cups of coffee, gazing at each other, no words needed to share a mutual understanding. This gift was more than jewelry. It was proof of a relationship in transformation. Harlow gently placed the velvet box on the table, her voice low like a whisper of the breeze. "Do you think someone's watching us? Believing in us?" Caspian smiled, his eyes deep and thoughtful. "You know, sometimes the greatest secrets are hidden in the smallest actions." They talked all morning, sharing dreams of the future, of Harlow's passion project for a community architecture initiative, and Caspian's smile as she spoke of designing green spaces for children lifted her like turning a new page. Each idea built more hope, and the diamond ring now became a symbol of a silent promise. No matter who gave it, they would embark on the journey to find answers together, while exploring the blossoming strength of their bond. As the midday sun grew bright, Harlow Sterling and Caspian Rhodes left the cafe, the faint chime of the door echoing like the prelude to the next chapter. In her heart, questions still hung unanswered, but she felt no fear. After so many storms, she had learned to face surprises with a steadfast heart, trusting that every unresolved mystery was an invitation to the beauty yet to come. Listening to the journey of Harlow Sterling and Caspian Rhodes through Thorn Marlowe's deceit and Juniper Crane's warmth, we grasp the power of trust. Thank you for watching Millionaire and Heart Stories.